Welcome to A Toast to Truth. This is where I share the mental, financial, and emotional frustrations of being an entrepreneur. This is season 8, episode 3. Where are all the African American marketers? And today I have a special guest co-host, fellow blogger, podcaster, influencer. I've known Mashable Ngome for years. I don't even know how long we've known each other. I don't even know how we met. That's crazy because I always try to remember like how I met someone. It's like we were in the same circles and we just kept seeing each other. But if you definitely want to follow someone who's an expert in LinkedIn and podcasting, then Michelle with Networking with Michelle is definitely where you want to go, hang out, learn some stuff. She always has great guests on her podcast. I think the podcast that stood out the most to me, Michelle, was the one you did on HIV. Because even though that's technically not your topic for your podcast, I thought it was very brave and courageous because some STDs are something that people kind of shy away from. And I think if you have an honest dialogue and you let people understand the information related to it, then the misinformation kind of goes away. But yeah, that definitely was one that stuck out to me. But anyway, everyone, here is our guest co-host, Michelle. And so before we kind of hop into today's conversation, here's your question. How can someone market to a community they have no cultural ties to?
That's a great question. One, thank you for having me. And to answer your question, I think you have to become a part of the community before you can market to the community. Meaning you have to go from, hopefully a guest into a member of the community, being observant the whole time and really understand what the challenges are or identifying the gaps instead of just going in blindly or via hearsay. And sometimes we get caught up in the numbers and the analytics and we just put money there. But I think you really have to go into the community as a guest, as an observer, and have meaningful conversation to see what the challenges and identify the gaps are before you start, quote unquote, marketing.
Yeah, because that's kind of like the Fry Fest. I definitely want to check out the Netflix because I don't have Hulu, so I'm going to have to wait for it to come on Netflix, their documentary on that. The Pepsi with, what's her name? Kendall Jenner, that. But before we continue, I want everyone to know that you are creating an organization. And so we'll talk about that later, but the organization itself is kind of answering both the topic and the question, like where are all the African American marketers and how can someone market to a community they have no cultural ties to? And on Twitter the other day, I saw that this African American lady, she passed away, and she was one of the first African American advertising. Now I know that's not marketing, but it's closely related. She was one of the very first women, and being an African American woman, to kind of be on, Madison Avenue. And so for people to think that African Americans can't market as to why we have the Pepsi fiasco, or how they marketed Fire Festival or whatever. And I haven't seen the Gillette commercial that everyone's talking about the male toxicity, but it's crazy because as someone who is African American, you would think McDonald's would have used that phrase. Do you have McDonald's money by now? Especially after what happened at the White House with all the burgers and everything.
Yeah.
But it's like they purposely ignore the voices that would easily tie a storyline to the community. And you've been in marketing for a while. What have you noticed over the last, I would say, 3 years?
Yeah, there's so much to unravel. One, I realized probably 10 to 12 years ago that, first of all, the word marketing is becoming very blurred.
Okay.
Okay. And what I realized 10 to 12 years ago when it comes to marketing is it was been divided at that time, it was divided into two categories. And this is just me in my observation. It was sales and marketing, and then it was marketing and design.
Mm.
And I think what happened for especially people like me, where I focus on strategy, we get caught in the middle. And corporations have a hard time trying to figure what strategy is. And if you're in a big corporation, that can go into research and development, right? But I think for the average person, small business owner, those were the two. And we get caught up with having our brand and everything looking pretty, right? The logos
Yes.
and brochures, and then social media came into the picture. And then it's like, what do I say? And then I don't need a market because social media is free. So I think the word marketing has become very broad. As you mentioned, advertising, and we have influencer marketing, content, social media marketing. It's blurred and it's broad. And I think that's where all of the challenges, right? In these different sectors of marketing. And there's so many things that need to be done, and it's hard to do everything very well. Unless you have a very nice sized team to, touch every category. And my job right now, I just want to teach marketing, right? I don't know everything, but if I can introduce different aspects of marketing, I think that's a good start for several people.
And you said some good things, like most people I've spoken to, like they'll want me to help with their social media marketing, but then they don't want to pay because social media is free. I'm like, that's Mark giving y'all free stuff. That's not Bernetta giving y'all free. I'm like, I'm like, Facebook may be free, but my time isn't.
Yeah.
But one thing I did, now mind you, I've been a blogger since 2009, but I really got into it in 2011. I used to send handwritten thank you cards to everyone who attended one of my events. It was a little time consuming, but in those thank you cards, I would put something that I remembered about that person at the event. So that meant I had to be very, very observant. That got me way more loyalty and repeat attendees than anything I posted on social media.
Yeah.
Now, mind you, I'm a blogger, people. So for a blogger to go offline marketing technique and it have a very strong impact, I think that's one thing people tend to forget, that there is still some strong offline marketing that is wonderful. You just have to know how to use it, because them stamps are not cheap.
Yeah, and I mean, social media to me is really supposed to be an efficiency tool, and it's just a way to keep in touch with people. Because right now, I mean, it's hard for me to call 2 people in a week outside of my family, let alone 20 or 200 people. But if I can send you a happy birthday message, a congratulations on the new job, and I tell people that struggle with LinkedIn, I said, if nothing else, use LinkedIn as a contact database, right?
That's good.
All your professional contacts. And lots of times when people reach out, like, hey, do you know someone for something? I go to LinkedIn, I type in those keywords, and then whoever pops up, I scroll through their resume, their profile, whatever, and I start doing recommendations. It's efficient because if I scroll through my phone, or, it's very, very rare that I even fill out my Gmail address book. I'm like, who does what now?
Right. And sometimes you don't even save them under their government name. At least I don't. I'm like, I've met this person at.
So social media is supposed to be efficient. It's not supposed to be free everything, and this, we could stop the interview after this, right? It's time versus money. And a lot of us have a lot more time than we do money. And the thing is, you can take the time to learn how to do Facebook, write the blog post or whatever, or you can pay an expert such as yourself to do it. And it's like, what do you want to do? And people don't want to do anything. They don't want to take the time to learn, and they don't want to pay for professional services, and that hinders them in their business.
And yet they want the outcome, which is so weird. Right. It's like you're not doing either or, but you're wanting this magical outcome to happen. And I'm just like, exactly. And I'm like, I'm not a patient person. Everyone knows I'm not a patient person, but I'll do the work and I'll ask, what do I need to do? What are the steps? Now, after a while, I may get a little frustrated, like, hey, this takes a real long time here, people. Like, am I not clicking? So is something not working? But when we talk about marketing, because I'm focusing more on event marketing, because like you said at the beginning, that marketing is very, very broad. So that's the same with blogging. Blogging is very, very broad. And I think for the most part, when you start, a lot of times bloggers try to do everything because you're trying to figure out what works for you, what audience is clicking. And over time, I noticed that I would get a better response from events. Like people were like, oh, that sounded interested, or can you tell me how to go? And I never paid attention to it until last year when Jay Stone, I don't know if everybody knows Jay Stone, but she and I were talking because I've known her for years. We met on Twitter. And so she's the one who coined the phrase paid event blogger. So that's what I go by now, because as we were talking, I realized most of the ways I get paid is somehow related to an event. So it probably would make sense to cut out everything else. So it goes back to what Michelle was saying, is if the term marketing is so broad, then you have to figure out, what it is you're going to focus on if you don't have a big budget or if you don't have a lot of time. And then also with the corporations, they're just not flexible. Like they have this one way of thinking, and you try to tell them, well, you may have to massage or adapt. And for some reason, it's like they can't do it. They are the most inflexible entities. And I'm like, but you have the money to actually move.
Right.
Be limbo.
It's crazy. It's crazy. And I'm glad you said that, because sometimes I listen to Gary Vaynerchuk, and it's like he has the same complaints, right? If you listen to enough videos, and if you listen to him closely, he has the same complaints with some of these corporations, and I find it funny. I don't know what people's problems. I don't know what their problem is.
And it's like they want to do the same thing over and over again, and then they want to fire the people when it doesn't work. And I'm just like, I'm pretty sure somebody in that meeting said this is not going to work anymore.
I'm going through it now at work.
Yeah, and it's just, and one thing that would like if I'm talking to like private clients, and I'll tell them, oh, you need to post about 5 times on Twitter during this time if they're getting ready to promote their, that's too much. Okay, but no one's going to see that one tweet every 2 weeks. Like Twitter is one of those things where you actually have to tweet, because they're like, you tweet a lot. I was like, obviously you see what I'm doing if you say, and I tweet a lot. You tweet once, no one's going to see it.
Look, that's another thing. I've been fortunate to receive my leads, right? I'm going to say leads, not clients. My leads based off of what I do, right? So people come up to me, Michelle, how can I speak, podcast, all these other great things. And like, I'm putting in work. And lots of times when I'm not posting, I'm probably either on break or I'm putting a strategy together, and then I come back full force. And people, when I tell people the amount of work I put into my own personal brand, it's like, I don't want to do.
They tired already.
I'm like, I don't want to. Is that what you know? But I say this, I do commend the people that do want to work with me. They understand. And then somehow we meet in the middle and we're able to move forward. But yeah, I put in my work.
So I want you to explain the difference between leads and clients, because that's almost like people don't know the difference between revenue and profit. You know?
So, I mean, what I consider a lead is anyone that is curious, that's interested in working with me, right? So they take the initiative to reach out. I've had someone sent me a message this morning, actually, on Facebook, and I messaged her 3 years ago. So I have no idea what the original initial contact.
How did she keep that? Oh man.
Well, she said, Facebook Messenger, if you're not friends, it goes into your other inbox.
Oh yeah, okay.
So I was like 6:00 in the morning. I'm like, what in the world? So she's curious, right? So obviously my business has changed. Lord knows what I was doing 3 years ago. But we'll see what happens. But I would consider that a lead, right? Okay. I get emails, my email list, people responding to that. I consider those leads. What do you do? What does it take to work with you? How much does it cost? All those are leads. Now, when a client is someone that we actually agree to move forward, once you sign the contract, or pay, depending on the service or whatever, that is a client. It may be a one-time client, it may be a reoccurring client, depending on the service.
And so I like the word curious, because there are a lot of curious people, and we do have to be careful because sometimes curious people ask a lot of questions, and before you know it, you may have given them everything they needed, and then they can move on. So, it's like those kids who ask 1,000,001 questions before they go to bed. So be careful with the curious ones. But what do you think the percentage is of converting from lead to client?
I probably hover between the 10 to 20%, right?
That's pretty good.
It just depends on what I'm promoting at this time, or whatever season I'm in. Right now, I have 2 long-term clients I've been working with for the past 2, maybe 3 years. Mm-hmm. And, then I have my consultations and I have my speaking or whatever. But my business is kind of stable. Mm-hmm. I do have a full-time job. And then, of course, I'm going to be launching the association. So I'm in a good place right now. And a lot of my focus is going towards the organization.
Well, with this shutdown, you got to have as many different avenues of money coming in.
Yeah,
that's possible.
True. That's true.
Because I'm not letting my travel company job go. I work a couple of days a month there. I was like, I'm staying there for a minute now.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like, I'm nowhere near government, but I think I'm in a funny space with my job. At least I feel that way. And I was like, I just got to hold on to my business. I don't care if it's $1 a month. I know that if I need to go back to my business full time, it's there, and I could warm up any of old clients, leads or whatever. At least I know it's there.
And you've done a good job nurturing relationships. And because see, I'm an extreme introvert. And so it's very, very hard for me to build relationships with people, especially when my discernment says they ain't no good. So I'm just like, I'm gonna just avoid them altogether. So what I did a few years ago is I reached out to people on Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn that were in Houston, or if I traveled to a conference or an event out of state, I would reach out to those people and I would meet with them one-on-one. That, for me, that was very comfortable. And I would say that is a form of marketing, because even though a lot of them didn't become clients, a lot of them refer people to me.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think we have to play to our strengths, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think I'm an ambivert. You know, when I'm on, but I love, staying at home and laying on my couch and watching Hulu, just like anyone else. And I think you just have to figure out what works for you. And right now, I'm at a point where I'm more focused on relationship maintenance, because a lot of people, they go out and they network, and they're always in networking mode. And usually, when you say networking, you're thinking about meeting new people, and you haven't taken the time to nurture the current people. And I feel like when you nurture your current relationship, that's going to lead to it's a longer outcome, but it's a greater outcome, because at the end of the day, you want to do people that you know, like, and trust, but it takes a while to build that trust, right? And that's where the nurturing. And if I'm going to new events every day, every week, yeah, I may close some clients, like immediate sales, right? Okay, maybe I'll spend, $10 on your book or $100 consultation. But once you're trying to get to, hey, it's $3,000 coaching, it's a $5,000 speaking engagement, it's going to take a while to nurture that relationship. I don't, even if it's someone's company, corporation money.
Ain't nobody trying to get rid of no money like that. I mean, let's just be real honest right now. Ain't nobody trying to write them big old checks unless it's like an absolute necessity, okay?
Right?
Because
well, at least for
listening,
me,
you're not trying to write no big old check.
Yeah.
You're going to be asking 101 questions.
I'm still building, and that's fine. But, I'm not a Damon John or whatever. Like, oh, okay. Like, just, they're not even asking for 5,000, right? It's probably like 50,000.
Yeah.
But they have a track record, and I understand where I'm at, and I understand I'm building my track record, and, I believe I'm worth it. But I still have to nurture that relationship. And that's not just for business, but I mean, that's collaboration. You talk about mental health. It's for so many things, and not just, everything's not about money at the end of the day.
So would you say that relationship marketing is not so much what you would probably do for your clients, but that's kind of what you're doing for your business at this point?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And so for those who are listening, Michelle explained relationship marketing. It is different than networking. This is where you're getting to know those people so that you see where you fit into their needs when the time is right. Because there are a lot of times when people will reach out to me and they were trying to sell me something and I got offended. Like, people used to try to sell me those teas. And I'm like, have you seen how small I am? Why would you reach out to me about this? Like, I was so offended, because I'm like, that is the worst thing you could do to someone who is my size. Because if I was in the mindset of, oh my God, are they calling me overweight or something, that could have hurt my psyche. Or, my whole life, everyone has asked, do you eat? Are you anorexic? Like, that's another thing. So, but I was just more like, dude, you've seen me in person. It wasn't even someone who just knew me online. This person has seen me in person. I'm like, I am not big. I don't know why, but I am not. So I don't understand why you're trying to sell me tea. And then I don't even drink tea.
And okay, so you got a good point. And that goes back to my first point in the very, very beginning about being observant. And not sending out automated messages 100% of the time, hoping something sticks. And one thing that worked for me, one of my favorite stories, I think it was 2013. I was hearing about Dr. Reagan Flowers. I would hear her name, didn't know who she was.
I've met her once.
And I was on the board of Houston Area Urban League Young Professionals, and she was a panelist for our networking brunch. And I just loved her energy. I loved her story. She was funny. I was like, oh, okay. And so she did that. And then I think about a year and a half later, a mutual friend was working with Dr. Flowers, it was like, hey, Michelle, can I get Dr. Flowers on your podcast? Heck yeah. Like I will make myself available, because this woman, she's been honored by the White House when Obama was in office, and just real big in the STEM industry. And that's not my lane, but definitely honor and respect what she's done for the community. And so we did the podcast interview, had a great time. And, I think it was a week or two later, she sent me an email. She's like, Michelle, how can I start a podcast? And I was like, what?
Yeah.
And, we launched her podcast in 2015, and we've been rocking and rolling ever since. And I think that's the beauty of relationships and relationship marketing, where I wasn't running up to her after the event trying to sell her something, not even knowing what her needs were at that time. But like 2 years later, things just naturally progressed. And here we are. We have a great client, friendship, business, relationship going on. And then even besides the business and sending out the invoices and doing the work, it's just like, hey, how are you?
Yeah.
Like genuinely, how are you? Money aside, how are you doing?
And I think a lot of times from my experience, people don't observe other people's needs. And then it goes back to kind of what Gary Vee says a lot, that it's a marathon, not a sprint. Like everybody's always looking for the immediate sale, not knowing that it could take 2 years. Like some people I've worked with, they're like, oh, I followed you for years. Never seen them comment, never saw a like. I'm sitting here like trying to look through the followers like, who is this person? So you never know who's watching and how long it will take them to get to the point where they're like, okay, I want to work with you. Because sometimes you may not be offering what they need, but they like you.
This internet is crazy. Couple of weeks ago, I was looking for a planner, and this guy did a video. I left a comment, and then I think I turned around and bought the planner. I don't know if I left another comment, and this lady sent me a Facebook message asking about working with me and stuff like that. And she's in the UK, and she followed me from that YouTube comment.
Oh, wow.
Follow me from the YouTube.
I don't know if that's stalking or because I have my little people who follow my comments, and I think it's weird, but okay.
Yeah, and that's like not even on my YouTube page, on someone else's YouTube page, requested me on Facebook, started sending me messages, and I was like, so we'll see. I don't know how we're gonna do it, but we'll see. But I was just like, what in the world?
Well, I don't know if that's determination, because they're like that, we gonna do something, or if it's stalking. And now it's almost like people see stalking as some form of admiration in a sense, especially like the date. Okay, we're gonna deviate for a moment. Y'all know how I do this. So on Twitter, men will like hop into your DMs and will stalk a girl, right? And then all of a sudden when they start dating the girl, they're like, hey, it worked. Dude, do not say that, because it's not going to work for everybody. Some guy's going to meet the right girl and he don't get his feelings hurt. Like, don't advocate for stalking somebody in their DMs. That's not practical or safe for the man.
Crazy out here.
Right? So we're going to take a quick sip and then we'll be right back.
So I'm very particular about what I recommend and use. As a loyal user over the past 5 years, I chose to use Gumroad as my e-commerce platform. It's great for digital creatives like me and you. I have watched it transform to be more user-friendly, which helps when we just want to upload our work and begin selling in less than 5 minutes. I've also used it for memberships, ticket sales, consultations, and digital training videos, to name a few ways to use the platform. So far, they've put $175 million in the pockets of creators around the world, only taking a 5% cut. Not bad. Would you like to join an e-commerce platform that brings in that type of money for its users? Go to gumroad.com/invites with an S to sign up today.
Okay, and we're back. So we had a great conversation so far about different aspects of marketing, because marketing in and of itself is not social media. It is not just blogging. It is not just influencer marketing. It is not just direct mail, because I don't think people even consider that direct mail still exists, because MailChimp does postcards now. Yeah, so if you're on MailChimp, they will do postcards for you. I don't know how it works, but I know it's there when it wants me to do a campaign or something. But there are so many different aspects, and I liked how you said, you broke marketing up into like marketing and design or marketing and sales. And now with the new wave of, I guess we could say this is like new marketing, new media, social media and all of that stuff, it kind of blurs the line. And so, yeah. And if you're taking college level classes, you're probably not learning this type of marketing. Because I know when I took business classes in undergrad, I don't even remember anything from my business class. I remember a project we did and we got the highest grade, even though I had to cuss out everybody on my team because they were like, we could just do a report. I said, no, we're not doing a report. We're going to do a skit. And they were like, that's the stupidest idea. I said, trust me. Everybody else in class did a report. The professor slept through half of them. We did our skit. He was like 100. He was like, and I was like, you have to figure out how to get people's attention when everybody else is doing a boring report.
Yeah.
And so for people who they want to get in marketing, or they're in marketing, but they just don't have a place where they can continually learn, let's talk about your association a little bit, because I did not know there wasn't one in the whole country. So let's talk about that.
Oh, man. So I am establishing the African American Marketing Association, and we should be launching next month, actually, as far as, the major announcement and all that stuff. And basically,
so when this podcast comes out, y'all, you will probably be able to see information. I'm just letting y'all know that you will probably be able to see some information. So that's why okay, keep going.
Absolutely. Basically, this has been on my mind, I guess, almost 6 years now. Definitely 5, going on 6 years. And it stemmed from a lady. I have no idea who she is, but she gave me the idea. And at the time, I just wasn't ready. Just graduated from grad school, started my business, left corporate. There was no way I could do it. But every year for the past 5-6 years, I would Google African American Marketing Association, Black Marketing Association, and nothing has come up. And last year I was like, now it's time. And I mean, there's been so many other things that kind of led me to this point. I don't think we get enough credit. When I look at the Adweek list.
Don't get me started on that.
Yeah, top 50. And I'm sure we got into some social media dialogue this past summer when that list came out, and there was no Black person on there, and there was only 10 or 11 women on there. And then a lot of the people on the list we're not even marketers or tech people. It's like you have the CEO of Pepsi on there, and she's done great, right, for the company and all this, but I'm like, she's not a marketer,
and she's retired. She retired.
And it's just like, okay, so when I think of marketing and tech, I'm thinking a lot of the social media platforms and the apps, but then you have like Delta Airlines or Coca-Cola on there. And I'm like, and I was like, you know what? We can create our own list, and And more importantly, not just me personally, but I'm like, I can start this association, and the association can create its own list. And it goes back to the FUBU, for us, by us, and just, hopefully trying to create a hub, a resource of information and people that could just share marketing. And I think one of the biggest challenges that I'm still trying to maneuver, and it's going to take time, and this goes back to what we mentioned earlier, marketing is so broad to the point where you have marketers, professionals, but then every industry needs a marketer.
Mm-hmm.
And it's trying to figure out, who am I going to cater to in this association has been interesting.
And I think you made a very valid point, because I'm going to do an episode on esports. Even though I have no ties to it, my nephew is really into it, and my undergrad alma mater actually has an esports team now. And so when I got the alumni magazine, they had a whole freaking 4 or 6 page article on esports and things like that. So I'm going to go into a little bit more detail. But you're right. If someone was into marketing, but they like gaming, then that would be the only thing they would have to do is market. And that's they're getting to, I think it's 2 billion by 2020.
Wow.
They're going to be
Crazy.
a very, very big industry over the next couple of years. And so people need to kind of hone in on where is it that they want to focus their marketing.
Yeah.
Events are not going away. I don't care what anyone says. Events are not going to go away. Now you have virtual events and you have live events. I'm good. I will always be able to figure out and find a place in that. But when it comes to the association, there may be people who are very, very skilled and gifted, but they may not know what industry. And so is that something the association would be able to kind of give them some resources so that they can kind of make a decision?
I hope so. My goal is to pretty much introduce the content, right? Introduce the information. Look, there's so many topics that can come under marketing. So creating the topics and the experts for speakers and panelists, I don't think that's the hard part. But it's one of those things where you need to come in, get what's for you, and see if you can apply it to your business or to your personal brand. Because it's a lot. It's so much. And I'm one of those people where I focus a lot on personal brand. That has carried me in my business for the past 5 years. Now I work for a law firm, and there's a great emphasis on SEO, local SEO, right? And that's a little bit more technical. That's not the fun stuff of the personal brand, and it's things that I've known, but now I'm in the trenches doing the work. And that's what I'm just trying to show people, just the different aspects of marketing. Yes, social media is fun, but if you have a business, this is why you need to know your analytics, right? Or Google Analytics to your website. And by knowing your analytics, you're able to improve your social media content. You're able to change your web content. And I think lots of times we lose sight of that. We think about auditing, we think about our business finances, right? We think about tax, but you can do a digital marketing audit. I just did one for a client in his business, where you can look at your website, you can look at your content. What do I need to get rid of? What do I need to clean up? What do I need to incorporate? Maybe I need to do more video. Guilty, so there's so many there's so many aspects of marketing that people are just not aware of. And I'm hoping that the association, starting in Houston, based in Houston, can bring that to the forefront, create a community behind it, educate people. And another thing is, this isn't about me, but creating a place for multicultural marketing, right? Where people can learn.
Because that pool is so small.
Yeah. But going back to your first question, where if you don't have a person of color in that room helping you create the ad and make decisions, hopefully the association, the African American Marketing Association, AMA, can be a resource for you. Like, I know I can go to this group of people and find a qualified candidate person and hire them on this project, you know, and that's what I really, really want. And hopefully some of these commercials and ads will be done right.
Right? Because sometimes you're just looking like, that's not kind of, I don't know anybody who would relate to that.
Like, who was in the room? Who was in the room? And did that person speak up?
And yeah, the Shea Moisture, you know, they hired a non-African American firm for that. And you know, it just got people all bent out of shape.
Yeah.
Because Shea Moisture products were typically for African American, mainly African American women and children use them, right? And so when they got the investment and they wanted to expand to, I guess, different hair textures and stuff like that. Now I can see from their point of view, they're trying to expand their brand, you know, but I can see from their base consumer that you're leaving us, you know? And so as a marketer, how do you make sure that your consumer base doesn't feel neglected while you're also trying to expand to a new group?
So there's so many things around that. I wonder, did the staff of Shea Moisturizer, and I'm assuming the Black or Brown staff, the founder, did they have these conversations with the white creative agency that put the ad together, you know, which goes back to being observant, or it's like, oh, okay, well, we'll, you know, whatever. But
because they had to see the storyboards before it went to right. I'm like, you had to have seen the storyboards.
And that's the thing, like, and who approved this message?
Yes.
Like during the process, not even the final, but don't get me started. I mean, maybe I'm just scary because I'll be sending my client messages. Is this okay?
Right? Because you're like, you don't want to go, because if you think about it, you don't want to go through all the work for it to come at the end and they're like, right. I don't like it. Kind of like that video clip of that woman on that TLC home show. It was a Black couple and they got their basement redone. And she opened her eyes. She go, I hate this. She was slapped off on the interior designer. And she was like, and the lady was like trying to explain to her, and she was like, no. And so watching that clip, it tickles me because I'm like, yeah, I don't ever want to have a client where I do all this work and then at the end they're like, I hate this. And you're like, okay, that's time wasted.
Yeah.
Now they're going to say, I want to move to someone else. Sometimes they don't even want to continue to work with you.
I think the most important thing is just walking your clients through the process, right?
Yeah.
And walking your clients through the process, telling them up front, walking them through the process. And I think in Black businesses, as we grow, especially with the ones with the products, they definitely have a hard time of meeting that demand with the vision of growth and expansion. But you can't lose sight of home.
Yeah.
You know, you can't lose sight of it. And like, I don't know what the process is as far as how you meet in the middle, especially with that type of product. And I understand when you start batching X amount of quantity, the formula changes and all those types of things. But I think in 2019, look, if you don't know by now, the Black dollar can be very loyal if you remain loyal to the Black consumer. And I think everyone knows that. They just don't want to cater to that. And I think a lot of corporations, they want to go in and get our quick Black dollar and not necessarily the long lasting Black dollar.
So that would bring me to this question, because this is something I've thought about over the last few years, because I've seen it in like the PR field, and I've seen it in the marketing field and the advertising field. Why are African American owned marketing firms, ad firms, PR firms not being hired by the larger ones when those larger ones have the contracts and the community is African American based? Because I know that the Hispanic community, they will outsource to a Hispanic owned firm. Okay, because I've been hired by some of them, and I'm not even Hispanic, but I have been hired by some of them. But when I've spoken to certain brands, they kind of look at me like I'm foreign or speaking a language they don't get on why aren't you hiring a Black-owned marketing firm to help you craft the message? You're still the lead. You're just outsourcing the most important aspect.
This is just my personal thought. I think we still have this white is right mentality at time. And that goes back into growth and expansion, whether it's the network or the dollars. And there's some slight truth to that, right? But what happens is your message doesn't resonate, hence Shea Moisturizer. And now you're doing damage control, which is a whole nother PR firm or PR
campaign. Everybody can't afford Olivia Pope. I gotta think about that.
But if you spend a little bit more money up front and do it right the first time, you don't have to spend those additional dollars on cleaning up your mess. But and that's, once again, that's part of the reason for the association, that hopefully if you didn't know where to look before, you can look now, and I'm hoping that the association could create lists, not just here in Houston, but on a national, like these are the top 50 Black marketers. Go follow them, and half the time these white people that are creating lists, the list is their friends. It's like their family and friends. It's not even someone, and I'm not trying to say they haven't done anything, but it's just like, oh, I know these people, so I'm going to look out for them.
That's the same as they say there's no Black people in tech. And I'm just like, all the guys I've ever dated were Black.
That's the thing. And I think it's another thing is exposure. It's, being exposed to that information. And hopefully I can serve in a way to create that information and share it to our community.
I'm definitely joining the association because I'm in the space, and it makes sense to be around other people because you learn some things when you're around other people. And one thing that I would say that I've noticed is small businesses like us, who, I'm not saying that I only want to work with African Americans. I love y'all, but I don't. I want to work with anyone who has an event. And the crazy thing is, I get paid from non-African Americans to do their events than I do from our own community. And it seems like the smaller our businesses are, we're going after other people and they don't want to pay us. So then people get, frustrated, constantly frustrated. And I'm like, it's okay not to have Black clients. And so what would you say to someone who's like, I only want to work with Black people?
I only want to work with Black people?
There are some people who do not want any other type of client.
Now, keep in mind, there's people that have, everyone's definition of success is different, right? So whatever your personal and company mission and vision is, that's fine. Now, if you're able to have a very comfortable and successful life by working with only Black people and not complain, by all means, go for it, But at the same time, being diverse, it's not only about skin color, right? So I would challenge you to work with other cultures, jump in that community, see if you can be of service, and maybe just collaborate. Right? Nothing wrong. It's like, okay, I know this is your community and you're good at this, but I'm good at that. And we can streamline the same strategy to help the community, whatever, whomever that may consist of. But just keep in mind, being diverse doesn't stop at someone's skin color and culture.
Because the one thing I would say that annoys me is if you only want to work with Black people, but then you're always constantly complaining that they don't want to pay you, they're asking for a discount. Like, you're complaining about the people you want to pay you.
Yeah.
Just figure out, and not all Black people are that way, because let's take, for example, Lamar Tyler. Like, you and I both went to TSB Live a couple of years ago. And most of his clientele are African Americans, and he and his wife do very, very well.
Right.
However, they have marketed very, very successfully and strongly, and they've been doing this. Oh gosh, I know I came across them in 2011, and they started way before then. That's probably 10 years that they've been in the game.
Longer than that, because keep in mind they started with black and married with kids.
That came out in 2006, right? Or it came around. It's been a while with that. Yeah. It was when it's one of the longest running Black and family websites out there. But the thing is, their message has gotten really, really solid, and through that, their marketing is always on point. I mean, for you to sell out 6 months, your event 6 months, and now people are like sitting there, who wants to sell their ticket, who can't go,
Yeah.
That says a lot. But I know that they've also transitioned, because they used to do a lot of brand work. And then they realized that the brand work wasn't getting as much money anymore and different things. So then they started creating their own products and different things like that. So when would you say someone needs to really pay attention to when it's time to pivot? Like, if this particular audience is not responding and you're not making money from them, or you're selling a specific service, when would you say you need to kind of go ahead and pivot and just stop with the losses?
I want to say when you exhaust all options, right? Because lots of times we get so caught up in like, oh, I need to change my messaging, I need to change my website, I need to rebrand with a new logo. And maybe you don't even need all of that. You just need a new audience, right?
Yeah, I've seen somebody rebrand 5 times in 1 year.
And then they still have the same struggle.
Yes.
And maybe you just need a new audience. So go find your audience, go find your community. And once again, that doesn't mean the same ethnic or culture group, right? It can be, or maybe it's a higher level, maybe, you work with small business owners, and that's fine. But maybe it's the executives, it's the C-suite, women that you need to coach for your business because they have more disposable income. It's just little things like that people have to be mindful of. And then just find that balance. Like recently, I just went back to work, and I was able to find a happy median between my job and my business. So there's a couple of different things that you can do to still keep the vision moving forward.
You made a very, very good point about maybe it's not what you're doing, but it's who you're doing it for. Because I've seen some people, and they had amazing, amazing, amazing businesses, and they just went out of business because the audience that they were targeting weren't responding. And I know I posted it sometime last year. It was about 7 businesses that I was really sad went out of business because I was a customer and I liked their products, but who they were targeting, people weren't responding as far as paying for those products. And so, like you said, sometimes it's just pivoting to a brand new audience.
Yeah.
And I think some people are scared, and we're all scared for a multitude of reasons. But what would you say to someone who's afraid because they're comfortable speaking to that audience because they know that language? But even though you may know the language of that audience, they're still not buying from you. So you need to go to an audience who is more aligned with the product, you just may not know how to speak to them yet. I said yet. So what would you say to someone?
Yeah, I mean, it is scary, but you have to move forward in spite of. And I would just say be encouraged and maybe start with um, sending messages online on LinkedIn or through a mutual friend. Like, oh, hey, I see we have a mutual friend, and you do this and this. Is this something you'll be interested in? Or I see you are a member or a board member of this association. I offer this and this. Can I give it to you for free? Right. And just testing the waters. And this can be a book, this can be a presentation, this can be a coaching session. And it's kind of like literally starting all over again because you're with the new audience. So maybe you do have to give away something for free just to get a feel for it for the second time. But if you're able to get one paying client, it's probably going to pay for itself and then it's worth it.
Yeah, and I would say maybe reach out to someone who also targets them, but they have like a different product or service, and hire them for a session and ask them, pick their brain. And I said hire because pick your brain is not a free thing.
Yeah.
But hire them for an hour of their time and ask them a lot of questions and see if they will be willing to let you do a survey to their audience, because you're not you're not selling the same thing, and just get an idea of what it is those people want or how they may view your product or your service. I know for me, I grew up in a predominantly white community in East Texas. It's getting a lot of press because of Patrick Mahomes, the quarterback from Kansas City. He kind of put our little town on the map. But I'm used to speaking to white people. And I never got that, oh, you're so articulate. I never got that from them. I would always get it from the Black community. And so for me to work with the Black community, I had to actually learn how to speak to people who look like me, because I wasn't familiar with a lot of the terminology, because I grew up in small East Texas town. A lot of countries speak a lot of words that are not used in Houston. And when I lived in Atlanta, it definitely was not used in Atlanta. I think the first day I lived in Atlanta, I cried. I called my mom and I was like, I have not seen one white person here. And she was like, are you serious? I was like, I'm so not used to that many Black people. But it's so I'm coming from the opposite. I had to learn how to interact with people who look like me because I have a different background. And so that's another thing. There's a diversity in Black people.
Right.
Like there's Black rural Americans and they have money.
Yeah.
The Black people in my hometown, they have money and they will spend it, okay? But you're not speaking to them where they feel respected.
Yeah. And lots of times, it's fine. You can have the right person, but you're in the wrong space, right? And it just depends on how you communicate with them on social media or how you meet them in person. And if you're able to, translate that relationship into the business realm, because Black people have money. Black people have money, and how you want to define and measure money, that's a whole nother thing. I have a colleague, this brother is so intelligent. And he's like, Michelle, you have a strong network. And I was like, yes, but my network consists of people between the age of 30 to 40 years old, pretty much 38 years old. And most of these people, my friends, we have left corporate America. We are new entrepreneurs, are sidepreneurs, and we're broke, right? And I say that word broke loosely because we just don't have the extra income because we're managing our bills and these new business expenses, right?
So y'all can't be flying off to Cabo and stuff on the weekend because people are like, girl, let's go. No, you got the 9 to 5 where you can do that.
Right. But there's no doubt in my mind when we're 40, right, 40 to 50, we will be very successful, right? So I understand my network, where my network is right now. And it's just a transition and it's a growing process. And I think that's when you do get into those stories and you think about the people that you do admire. They're 50, 60 years old and they have this magnitude of success. And it's
They were
like,
putting in 30 years of work.
exactly.
Okay, because Oprah was 30 when she got her talk show. You know, some people talking about they 19 and they ain't, shoot, I was 29 and I still didn't have my life together. Okay, so like you cannot rush. Now everybody's not going to be a Mark Zuckerberg where it just happens, you know, so young in life. And then sometimes when it happens so young in life, you don't manage it well because you don't have the experience to know how to manage it, whatever it is you have received. And so we're gonna wrap up and we're gonna get ready to say our final toast. But for those who have been listening to the podcast over the past 8 seasons, this is a very important podcast because as much as you try to put your business together, know what product, know the emotional things you want to deal with, if you don't market to the right audience, all your marketing efforts are null and void. Like you would have been spending, and I'm speaking from experience, people. Like I'd never share anything that I have not done myself, where I've spent months, like with the detox, the BS thing. It did okay, but it didn't do as well because I was marketing that to the existing audience that I had. And everyone wasn't very responsive to it favorably. And so I learned a hard lesson, very expensive lesson. I still have inventory, you know, at home, but it was a lesson that I learned that just because I wanted to sell a new product doesn't mean the existing audience. Didn't matter how well I marketed, because they liked the stuff, they shared it, but it still went nowhere.
And that's another thing. I mean, you as an individual, we can't be afraid to evolve. And then sometimes when you are growing, that doesn't necessarily mean your audience is going to grow with you. But you can't shy away from that, you know. And if you are making a lot of money in something, but you're getting bored, that doesn't mean you should stick to that either.
Oh, that's a good point.
You know, I think there just comes a lot of self-awareness, personally and professionally, in how you express that to your audience.
I think that's a very good point and a way for us to kind of end before we get to the final toast. Because I don't think people understand you can't get bored, even though it's your business, quote unquote. You can't see the air quotes, but it's your business doesn't mean you have to do the same thing for the next 50 years of your life. Nobody does anymore. Yeah. Okay, so we're going to get ready for final toast. Okay, so Michelle, what would you say that people should walk away from this episode with?
One, being encouraged, understand that growing is part of the process. With that comes growing pains, and always market. You know, learn how to market, apply marketing to the right audience, and try again.
Okay, so I would say my final toast is going to be somewhat related to the title and the question, but it's not so much of people who need to market to the African American community as it is you needed to know how to market to the community that you're trying to reach, because you could be an outsider like I was to a community that looks like you, and you may not have quote unquote cultural ties to that. So definitely spend some time learning about the community you want to market to, or understanding that the community you are currently marketing to may not be the one for you.
Right.
So this has been a Toast to Truth with me, Vernetta Arfredi, and my guest co-host, Michelle Ngome. This is Season 8, Episode 3, Where Are All the African American Marketers? And we talked about some of the consequences we've encountered. But if you want to know where the African American marketers are, you can join the African American Marketers Association, and we'll have more information. We'll share more information later in February once that's up. So thank you again, Michelle, for being the guest co-host, sharing And for those who are listening, we'll be back for another episode next week.
Go to VernettaRFree.com for the show notes. Make sure you go to VernettaRFree.com /category /podcast.